I think there's like a goal and then all like these sub goals, right? If there's one goal, it would be to create a secure attachment with their child. And what this means is being an attentive, attuned parent who is predictable in their responses and who is consistent in the way that they respond and who has that depth of connection and who's able to create safety and security within the relationship. So a lot of parents our age did not receive that.
And I noticed that if I'm doing this in the calm moments, cold plunging, self-care, meditating, coaching, therapy, like I am a yes to all this, I noticed that if that is prevalent in my life, then my capacity in any intense moments is so much greater. Like it takes a lot to really like work me up in a way where I'm like, oh, I'm hitting an edge. Hello and welcome to the Mama Culture. This is a place for you to be supported, inspired, and resourced on your unique journey through motherhood. I'm your host, Corey Zorns, a fellow mama, here to bring you information and wisdom on parenting, wellness, personal growth, and everything in between so you can thrive as a modern mama. So grab your favorite warm drink, settle in, and get ready for relatable, honest, and empowering conversations about the most important job in the world. This is the Mama Culture. Hi, Mirra. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to dive into your wisdom. You have a lot of information on parenting in a different way, and I cannot wait to dive in and ask you these questions and just to see your view on things because I've been following you on social media and I love your posts and I love the things you share. And I think these topics are really just game changers for parents on emotions and regulating and internal motivation for children. So I'm excited to dive into all of it. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So just to start off with a little bit about what you do. So you are a licensed clinical social worker and a JAI certified parenting coach, supporting parents, couples, and families on their journey towards secure bonds and emotional well-being, which is what just all of us want and need. And then you're also the founder of Ohana Therapy in Denver and Connected Beings, your online platform, leveraging your expertise in attachment theory, neurobiology, neuroscience, and emotional intelligence. You're a mama of two. You have a 4-year-old little girl, just like me, a 2-year-old little boy. And you offer just so much support with parents through therapy and coaching and online courses. So I'm excited to have you here because I know you have a lot of wisdom that we could all use.
Thank you.
So if you want to start off with just telling us a bit about yourself, your work, mama life.
Well, I'll start with mama life. Like you said, I have 2 kiddos. And what's so interesting is that before I had kids, I had many years of training in attachment and trauma and neuroscience and a lot of my own interpersonal work also. And thinking like, okay, I have all this, bring it on, like I've got it. And then parenting happens and it's not always like that. And so my experience early on was noticing my own nervous system responses to my daughter and her cries or her tantrums. And even though I knew the quote unquote, maybe better way to handle situations, I noticed where I would become overstimulated and then react versus respond. And so where I was really passionate about my work before, once I became a parent, I became even more kind of just enlivened around supporting parents to really understand how their earliest relationships, starting even in utero, impact how their brains develop and how they see themselves in the world, how they regulate their own emotions, and how they develop relationships later on. And so my work now with parents is really reparenting, helping them to go back and see like, okay, here's the here and now. I'm having a hard time, my child having a meltdown, but why am I reacting in this way? And what's really coming up for me? And what did I receive as a child? And how much my own attachment strategies with my parents really impact me now as a parent, and helping parents to heal those and to make those connections and to learn how to develop a really safe, secure relationship, not only with their child, but really with themselves. And so I'm like on this mission to help parents to heal so that we can raise a generation of kiddos who are securely attached and know their worth and know what they deserve and are confident and who go out into the world in an empowered way versus just being so inundated with insecurity and fear, and which can happen in parenting generationally. So that was long, but that's why.
I love that. I love that mission. And I think we can all relate to that. So many things that you said, but one is you've done all this work and then you become a mom. And I feel the same way. I'm like, oh my God, I've done all this work. I have all these resources, all these tools. I've been on this spiritual path for 11 plus years. And then you become a mom and new stuff comes up and old patterns come up. And I feel like it's the most important time to figure out what's there, to figure out what's really there, and to move past it and to dive in and to reparent. It's like it couldn't be more important as it is now, when it's not only ourselves that we're impacting, but, you know, our family units. So yeah, I really see that. One of my intentions for this year was just really working with my nervous system, because it's so funny. Like our little ones that we love so much, they can cry or have a tantrum or something's wrong. And it's so interesting when you really sit with it and pay attention to your own nervous system. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to bypass, and like you don't even know, and you just start reacting and you start getting really worked up and hot inside. Yeah. But lately I've been really sitting with my nervous system and just watching what it does. And I just like feel this little clench in my nervous system that I've been working with. So one of my biggest goals and intentions, I didn't set all these intentions like I'm going to build this business and make this much money. My biggest intention for this year was slowing down, presence, but also just really healing my nervous system. Because like if we have calm nervous systems, it's so much easier to have all the things we want, do all the things we want to do, be the person we want to be. So instead of setting these big goals and make more money and build more business and do more things and have a more insane nervous system, I just want to have a calm nervous system. And then I'm like, okay, and then what do I want from that place? Because in the end, I really just want a happy family. So.
Love that touching on the nervous system, because it's one of the biggest things that I teach around what gets in the way of us being able to stay connected and grounded. Because as our child is having these big emotions, and like you said, you're noticing your nervous system becoming activated. Well, why does that happen, right? And for parents, it happens for, I think, 3 main reasons, which if you want, I can go into those if you feel like that.
Yes, tell us, please.
So the first thing is going back to how the parent was raised themselves. So if a parent as a child had really big feelings, cried, was angry, had some emotional expression, and their parent didn't have the skills or the capacity to sit with their emotions, and therefore either shamed them, punished them, invalidated them, made them stop, suppressed it, that child didn't learn how to be with their own emotions, and they didn't learn how to regulate their nervous system. And so the message that they received is that it's not okay to feel. And either the child goes into a state of kind of freeze around it as a way to keep connection with their parent, and so they become so disconnected, or they go into more of a sympathetic nervous response, which is like that fight flight, where they become just constantly just in a state of like activation, or nervous system just kind of hypo reaction. And so then that child becomes a parent, and their child is now having these big emotions, and it's literally re-triggering the little child within them. Like the child who didn't know what to do, the child who was scared when they had those feelings, the child who was just activated into that lower brain response. And so their child then feels threatening to them. In a sense, child's not threatening, but the nervous system reacts in that way. And so that clenching feeling that you described is this feeling of like, I need to make this stop. it's too overstimulating. I need to make this stop. And so then parents then, if they don't know how to regulate themselves and to notice, like, okay, I'm noticing a clenching. My jaw's tight. My shoulders are tight. I'm not going to say anything. This is like my mantra, right? Like, all these things, do not say anything as your child's doing whatever. And then regulating, breathing, different regulation skills. Typically, they either react from a sympathetic nervous system response, try to shut it down, or they become frozen themselves, which then becomes power under parenting or this really permissive parenting because it feels like too much, So that's like a big one. The second one is trauma. And maybe you have questions about that. Maybe I won't go on and tell you.
Yeah. So I was going to say for the first one, what would the biggest tools and resources you would give to these parents that feel that way? I think most of us were not really acknowledged with our feelings when we were young. I don't think our parents were given those tools. I don't think most of them knew any better. So what are the tools that you would give parents that are going through those states of like either freezing or really reacting to our children's emotions?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the biggest things that parents can do is the pause, right? So I have one thing that's called the RRR, which is regulate, reflect, and then relate. So if your child is having a big feeling moment, the first thing to do is to just regulate yourself. Because what you're wanting to do in those moments with your child is help them to regulate their emotions, to co-regulate with them, which just means they borrow your calm. But you can't do that if you're dysregulated. So some great things for parents to do is one, breathing, breath. There's many different breathing exercises, but one is breathing into a box where you count in for a count of 5. You hold your breath for a count of 5. You breathe out for a count of 5, and then you hold your breath for a count of 5. You can do that. You can just take count to 5 and let it out. Second is really just feeling your feet on the floor, right? Grounding. And then just reminding yourself, this is not an emergency. My brain might think it is, right? Because I feel threatened by this big emotional experience my child's having, but it's actually not. And so if we can remind our brain that it's not an emergency, that we don't need to be in a survival place.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have one other thing too. The other thing is that strengthening the vagal tone, which basically means your capacity to manage stress outside of a stressful situation, can be really helpful. So you have what you can do in the moment, but really it's how do you strengthen that capacity when it's not stressful? And I imagine you have so many ideas on this with the work that you do, but self-care, either therapy or coaching, right, to really help strengthen that. And then things like humming or putting your hands in cold water or cold plunging, but is so helpful.
Yeah. I'm a fan of all those things. I love cold plunging so much. I am such a fan of cold plunging because I notice the effect it has on my nervous system. It's intense, but it starts to calm and regulate my nervous system.
Yes.
I love cold plunging and I love all those things you said. Like I am so big on taking care of ourselves, self-care, putting that in our calendars every single week, filling ourselves back up. And I notice that if I'm doing this in the calm moments, cold plunging, self-care, meditating, coaching, therapy, like I am a yes to all this. I notice that if that is prevalent in my life, then my capacity in any intense moments is so much greater. Like it takes a lot to really like work me up in a way where I'm like, oh, I'm hitting an edge. But I do notice that if I am hitting edges, I can literally go back and look like, oh my God, my week's been too full. My calendar's been too intense. I haven't been doing self-care.
The thing I was going to say is that I can so relate to what you just said in terms of my own ability to regulate and how much calmer and more grounded I feel after cold plunging. The endorphins that are released and how long that they stay in my system. And I also agree with you on what you said about the capacity. Like if I'm full, my capacity is like, bring it on.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think I mostly prioritize so much support for myself in my life that, yeah, my little one can have a tantrum and I'm just sitting there, standing out. I'm like, I got you. I love
That's the
you. I see you in
goal.
your tantrum. Yeah, it is the
I got
goal.
you.
And then other times when I'm so tired and so on my edge and I'm like, please don't tantrum. Can we just like nap right
Yes.
now? I can't handle this. So yeah, I really see the effect on like the everyday moments, not what we're doing in the stressful moment, but what are we doing when we're not stressed? And just how does that support us in those moments? How does that prepare us for the big moments?
And the more that we do that, it does strengthen our capacity and our vagal tone to be able to manage.
Vagal tone. Okay, so you said there's 3.
Okay. Yeah, I said, okay, so trauma. So if you've experienced trauma, and that's a very long topic, but basically trauma gets so stored in our brain and in our nervous system. And so again, if our child is having a big, intense moment and we've experienced trauma, we're going to feel that as a threat. And then that threat then activates that same part of the brain that was activated during the trauma. So it can feel really scary for parents. And then the third one is biologically. So some of us are born biologically more sensitive. And we might call those, I've heard it all on Instagram, but the spicy child or the big feeling child or the highly sensitive child. Or there's many terms, but if you were that child that now you're the parent, your own just biological response and your own ability to regulate your nervous system. And then if you are a highly sensitive child with parents who are highly insensitive, then that really can impact your psyche. And we see, a lot of mental health concerns when those two combine with highly sensitive with like really insensitive parents or even threatening or scary parents. If you're a highly sensitive child and you have attuned, connected parents, then you're going to be a like very probably empathetic and intuitive human.
So that's the 3.
Yeah.
So the first one is emotions, like how our parents handled our emotions. Did they support them? Were they shut down or were they supported? The second one you said is trauma. So did we go through any big traumatic experiences? Mm-hmm. And then the third one you said is biological. So just how we're born.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to piggyback off that too, in the first one is also what's combined with that emotional attunement from the parent is attachment. And what is the type of attachment that our parent gave to us when we were children? And what are the strategies that we created? Because that also informs our brain to then be able to manage or regulate our emotions effectively.
And what are the different types of attachment? Because we hear about attachment science and attachment parenting, but what are the different types of attachment that we can create in our children that we might have?
Sure. So I would say, firstly, about attachment, that if there's one goal for a parent to have, I think there's like a goal and then all like these sub goals, right? If there's one goal, it would be to create a secure attachment with their child. And what this means is being an attentive, attuned parent who is predictable in their responses and who is consistent in the way that they respond and who has that depth of connection and who's able to create safety and security within the relationship. So a lot of parents our age did not receive that. So I'm just going to like breathe because that can just be hard even to hear. Like, gosh, and I get a lot of those comments, like, oh, I didn't receive that, or I wish I had received that. And so that is the goal, because children who are securely attached have the most optimal adulthood. If you feel safe and secure in who you are, if your narrative about yourself is that I am good, that I am worthy, that I am lovable, if you are taught that your emotions and your experiences are valid and okay, then you grow into an adult who is confident, who's resilient, who's able to manage and regulate your emotions, who's able to build relationships that are healthy and strong and connected, right? When I think about for myself, like what is my main goal? That is my main goal, is to create a secure attachment with my children. And so then how do I do that, right?
So this is the main goal for, I think, so many of us parents, creating secure children. And when I think about that, I think about my little one feeling so free in the world to do whatever he pleases, whether it's like go big or travel or start something or be in a relationship. Like I want him to feel so safe and so loved and so free in his choices, where he doesn't have to like always think about like, is this going to work? Am I going to fail? Am I going to be good? Am I going to be bad? Us as parents want our children to feel so secure in the world and so loved and so supported and so backed by us. And so what are some of the biggest challenges? What are some of the biggest things that you think are stopping parents from showing up in this way?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing that gets in the way is how the parent was parented. It's so generational. You had asked earlier, like, what are the type of attachment styles? So you can either have a secure attachment or you can have a insecure attachment. And so the insecure attachment is either anxious, ambivalent, avoidant, or disorganized. And so parents are coming into parenting with their own attachment styles or strategies. So the parent who, let's say, has an anxious, ambivalent attachment style where their parents were inconsistent in the way that they parented. So they might have been warm and connected in one moment and threatening and harsh in another moment, where the parent wasn't predictable. The child becomes preoccupied on their parent. How is my parent going to respond? Are they going to be connected or are they going to be scary? I'm not sure. And so the child just focuses on keeping that relationship connected and preoccupied on how their parent is going to react. That child who then becomes the parent who also has an anxious attachment is going to have a harder time creating security because they don't feel the security inside themselves. Right? They might be able to show up and be warm and connected, but they might also be really emotional and reactive. And then the other one is avoidant. And so avoidant would be the child whose parent was too overwhelmed by caring for their child. This is one instance that they just become avoidant to any of it. And the message that the child receives is that your needs and your wants and your emotions aren't okay. And the brain literally shuts down, consciously shuts down those parts of the brain because there's no attunement to those side the child. And so those children tend to be, I'm just going to figure it out on my own. I don't really know or care if my parents there or not there. I mean, of course I care, but what it seems like is it's not safe to really care. So I'm just going to figure it out on my own. I'm going to figure out how to just be with myself. I'm probably, as an adult, going to be really disconnected to my own emotions, to my own thoughts, to my own feelings. It wasn't really okay to feel any of that. So I kind of separated myself from that. So then if they have a child who's having big feelings, and their desires to connect and be present to their child's big feelings, but no one ever taught them. No one ever gave that to them. It's going to be challenging for them to sit and be present. That parent's going to want to get right on out of there. They might not react like the other parent. They're going to just like avoid.
It is wild how much is just literally passed down from generation to generation. And to put a stop into what is being passed down, to put a stop in insecure attachment styles and to change it, that is really big work. It is really big, deep work for us to take on. And I just like really honor and see all the parents out there right now that are doing this work to become securely attached. I saw a lot of insecure attachment styles in myself within relationship with men. And so I had a really hard time dating and being with men. I would love chaos. I would love messiness in relationships. And when I started dating my partner now, I really had to learn what secure attachment was. And he was really secure in relationships. And it really supported me in also learning that style. And I'm sure it helped a lot with parenting as well, because feeling so secure for the first time in a relationship, I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to not want the chaos and the messiness and just to see how calm love can be. It was a huge one for me. So seeing with us parents and our little ones, when we're having these different feelings or emotions or attachments come up, I imagine for the little ones, it's coming through in two ways. First of all, is our language and our communication. So what we're saying to them. But I imagine it's also really coming through in just the energy that we are being, because children feel so much of our energy. So even if we're saying like, I'm here, I love you, but we're so worked up inside, like they're feeling that. Like if we're unregulated, but we're saying like, I'm here with you, I'm imagining they still feel our dysregulation. So I imagine that's the biggest things that children are perceiving our attachment and perceiving us is with one, our communication. And the second one is like who we're actually being and how we're actually feeling in those moments. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, kids are so perceptive, right? And kids are scanning always the environment, right? Because they're wired. I mean, we as humans are wired to connect. And children are born into the world for survival reasons. They have to connect to their parent. So they are always scanning. Is it safe? Am I okay? Are my needs getting met? And again, it's not conscious. These are just unconscious ways of being. And if they're literally needing to be connected to their parent in order to survive, then they are going to do and act in the ways to keep connection. And they are going to be feeling into, my mom's okay, how do I make it better? How do I make me better so my mom is okay or my dad is okay? Or how do I alter who I am inside to make it so they feel like a safe person rather than the child just being who it is that they are meant to be?
And so we're so human. We have our moments, we have our hard times, you know, mom and dad's fight. What do you think the best ways to handle these things? Like, do you think it's the best is like to take it away from the children, or like when you're having a hard moment to walk away, or do you think it's to like be there with them and talk them through it and let them know what's going on? What do you think the best tools are for parents, like when we're having these really human moments of not feeling regulated, feeling really angry, feeling really mad at our partner, just like whatever's coming on in life, feeling really sad? What are your strategies when parents are feeling these things?
I love this question. And it's nuanced, depending, I think, on the situation. So why don't we start with the coupling fighting? I actually think it's really healthy for children to see disagreement if they see the repair. And because there is going to be disagreements, there is going to be conflict. And if the parents always go behind closed doors to have conflict, and I experienced this as a child, my parents had all these tools and nonviolent communication, and they like hid it all from us. And then when I got older and there was conflict, I was scared. I didn't know how to deal with conflict. It felt really like activating to my own nervous system. And so children need to be able to see that we have disagreements, not only when with our partners, but also between the parent-child dyad as well. So if a couple is having a disagreement, then it's really important that they also show the repair, the apology, the taking responsibility, the hugs, the kisses, the whatever happens in a repair. That's the first thing.
Mm.
The second thing is that there's good fighting and there's bad fighting. There is fighting that kids should not witness, right? That would actually be really scary for them to witness. Are you fighting in a healthy way or are you fighting in an unhealthy way? So that's just something to be aware of. And then if you are arguing with your partner, let's say, and your kid is bearing witness, it's really important to go back to the child and talk to them about what their experience might have been. So I have this memory, and this comes up in my mind quite often. And my daughter was maybe 2.5. And my husband and I were in an argument, and she kept trying to interrupt us to stop it. Mom, can you come here? And can you hear? But we were so in it, that I was like, honey, that's okay. Like, we'll be with you in a second. If you don't want to be here, you can go into your bedroom. And what I realized after reflecting was that she was scared, even though we were just having a disagreement. She felt scared and it didn't make sense to her. And so what's so important is going back and saying, sweetie, you just watched Daddy and I have a disagreement, huh? And I imagine that felt scary to you because you weren't really sure what was going on. And Daddy and I love each other. And sometimes we just disagree on things, but we still love each other. But helping the child to make sense of whatever situation that they witness so that they don't internalize it and try to figure it out on their own.
Wow, super powerful. Yeah. I feel so passionate with my little one about communication And I think this is a mark sometimes we miss as parents because we think my little one's going to be, he's not even 2 yet, actually. He's going to be 2 in a couple weeks. In 20 days, he's going to be 2. And I think a lot of parents think like, oh, they're too young to understand. We don't need to talk to them that way or explain what's going on. But I feel really passionate about this. And I have since he was born about having these conversations with them, whether we think they can understand or not. I think it's so important to have these conversations because it's also practice for when they're older, when they really do understand every word they're saying. And even if they can't understand, it's like they can feel us and they can sense us and they're aware of so much more than we understand, actually. So I feel really passionate about communicating with our children and telling them what's going on and telling them how we feel and telling them when we get in a fight with our partner. And yeah, I love what you said. They can see disagreements. Like that's a normal part of life. And talking them through and letting them know what's going on and then letting them see the repair. I think those were all so important. But yeah, I feel really passionate about the communication piece.
Oh, I love that. And he's so lucky to have you, to have a mama who's so attuned and connected in that way. And you're right. Kids are very aware, conscious little humans, even before birth. So much that even in utero, babies have gone through their own parents' nervous system and the hormones that are secreted into them while they're in utero. And then as the baby's here, right, it's like, how do we treat the baby as a real whole human? They want only to change their diaper. How do I say, hey, buddy, I'm going to lay you down. I'm going to pick up your legs. All my hands are cold. I'm going to put this underneath you. I'm going to set you down. Now I'm picking you up, right? It's like so often I think they're not going to understand, right? And I will say it is, just for all the parents listening, it is very hard to do that all the time. There are many moments where I just pick up my child and then I'm like, I probably should have warned them first. Just so if you're listening, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do that. Like, it's all good. It's all good.
I know. I think it's just a practice and there's balance. I know, but that's a big thing. I'm trying not to do things to him without talking because I'm like, what if somebody just did that to me? Like came up and pulled my shirt off my body. I'm like, can you tell me first? So I really try to relate back to myself. Like what kind of communication would I want with someone else if I couldn't take off my own shirt? If I couldn't pull down my pants, if I couldn't change my own diaper, it's like, what would I want someone to say to me? And I know parents listening to this, it's like there is a balance and there are times where we're like trying to get out of the house and we're just sticking shoes on them. But I think as much as possible, trying to add this communication to our little ones from the start. I always look at it as practice. I'm like, if you from the start do this as your practice, when they get older and older and older, it's going to be more impactful because they will start to know and understand and relate to you with that kind of communication.
Oh, they do, for sure.
Yeah.
And, one of the things you asked too is like, do we talk about our own emotions?
Yeah.
And so I think that it is because kids are so tuned into us that they can see if we're frustrated, right? They can see if we're sad. And if we don't have language for that, then they're going to interpret it and make their own story about it. So I think as parents, it's okay to say, wow, I'm noticing my nervous system is stressed right now. Or I'm noticing I'm frustrated. I am going to work on calming my body down, my nervous system down, right? It's really important not to put that onto the child of like, you're making me frustrated or you're making me angry, right? Because it's not the child's responsibility to manage the adult's emotions. But it's really the adult's responsibility. But that doesn't mean as parents, we're not going to have frustrated moments. And so it's okay to say that. And then I would say the number one, besides creating a secure attachment with your child, and this falls under like how to do that subcategory, the number one thing I would say to parents is that you're not going to get it right all the time. You are going to react and you are going to do something that you look back and have parent guilt about and say like, oh my gosh, I wish I hadn't done this, right? And not only once, it's going to happen multiple times. The best thing you can do is repair with your child, right? So if you have a moment where you react in a way that did not feel good, go back and say, hey, can I talk to you? I wanted to talk about that thing that happened earlier. Yeah, mommy reacted. I bet that was scary for you. I bet that felt confusing. Yeah, I got frustrated. But that is not your fault. I will continue to regulate my emotions. I love you so much, right? If we can do that, the child then learns that conflict happens, that ruptures happen, but that connection is still intact. That's how we create security, right? There's connection, rupture, repair, and that's the cycle. Repair has to happen in order for that cycle to complete.
It just really allows us to be humans, like messy mamas and messy dads who make mistakes and who make ruptures and who say the wrong thing or who act out and have dysregulated nervous systems. Like, it's all of us. It's every single one of us.
Yeah.
We all do it, and we'll all keep doing it. And I love what you said. It's a cycle, and the last part of that cycle is repair.
Yeah.
And it also teaches our children that they get to be humans too, and they get to mess up, and they get to make mistakes, and then they get to repair, and it's okay, and it doesn't make us bad. We're still inherently good and worthy humans.
Yes.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I think it's the perfect thing to end on before your little ones come home, unless they're already home. I just want to thank you so much. I feel just your kindness and your passion and your mission with how you want to support mamas and dads and parents and the children. And it just all ripples out and has such an impact. So thank you so much for sharing everything. Is there anything you want to leave people with, and where to find you, and any courses and coaching you have coming up?
No, and thank you for having me. I feel just that same, like, just connection with you and seeing what you're doing and just the love you're sharing with the world. It's beautiful. And yes, I actually have a course coming up February 13th at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, but it also don't have to be to it live. They can do it whenever they want, and they'll get the PowerPoint and the workbook that comes along with it. And it's all on nervous system science, looking within. So it's not just learning, they'll be learning, but it's also giving the parent a chance to look within and to address some of those things that we talked about before. And then a lot of practical strategies and tools to be able to not only work with their own nervous systems, but also to help their child and help them to regulate their nervous system, learn how to co-regulate. So I'm jumping to all of that. It's like a 2.5-hour class, a lot of Q&A time for people who want to ask questions. And then I have a coaching business. I do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching. I honestly think that if parents are really wanting to break some of those generational patterns, that they do need support, whether it's me or their own therapist or a different coach. It's a lot to just read a book and then try to do this, It takes a lot to heal those deep-seated wounds and to be able to then become the parent that I think all parents want to be, right?
I so believe that. I so believe in us having support and investing in support. Yeah. And I've always been investing in my own support. And we deserve that as mamas. We're giving so much, and dads deserve that. They're giving so much. We deserve to also be backed by coaches and therapists and courses and learning. And it helps back us in what we're doing and who we're being.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And it helps us just to feel held.
Yeah.
Right? Held that mama, cooking her meals. It's so important for us parents to be held and nurtured.
Parents deserve to be held in community, in support. Yeah, all of it. Thank you so much. Your course sounds amazing that you're leading in February. I will link everything, and I'll link your Instagram. Awesome. And I highly recommend everyone go check out Mirra. She's just has so much great wisdom to offer all of us. So thank you so much for being here. I'm we have so much more stuff to connect before this podcast. We were talking about all these different topics and how to raise confident kids and so many different communication styles and so many things. So I'm sure we'll have you back on at some point, but thank you.
You're very welcome.
We'll chat again soon. All right, Mama, thank you for tuning in. I am sending you so much support and love on your journey through motherhood. Remember, you are not alone in this beautiful, wild, and sometimes challenging journey of motherhood. This is your village. Please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this with anyone else that you think would benefit. Take care, Mama, and I will see you next week. Thank you for being part of the Mama culture.